We honor this land on which we gather. We acknowledge with respect the history, the spirituality, the culture of the peoples with whom Treaty 6 and Treaty 8 were signed and the territory wherein our church resides, and our responsibility, all of us, as treaty members. We also honor the heritage and the gifts of the Métis people of this land and the Papaschase Nation, on whose land we find ourselves this day. We gather in this circle, welcoming one another to this community that gathers around this table. We come on this last Sunday in February, celebrating Black History Month, and also considering how it is that we come to a common table as one community, diverse as we are. Welcome to this circle, whether you've been in it many times or never been here before or been here many, many times. We take our place. We gather in this time with one another because deep in our hearts, we have so much in common.
We gather to encourage one another to live into the full potential of our common humanity. We come to pray, to sing, to ponder, and to celebrate. We come to lament some shameful and painful chapters in our history, our harsh mistreatment of one another, and the evils of racism. We come with openness and gratitude for our diversity of colors and culture, of language and custom, of faith and tradition. Come to deepen our resolve to treasure the mosaic of difference and to deepen our commitment to dignity and equality for all. And so it is with each of the commitments we've made and the reasons for our coming and the reasons for our being, that we light this candle. We recognize that in this light is each of us, is our journey in spirit, is our connection with each other, with the cosmos, and with every creature. We recognize that in this light, we see each other as we truly are, and we connect with all that is worthy. And so it is that in this day where we desire to see our unity and our connection with each other, that we should sing about peace and our connection around this planet with that which is life. This is a story that's one of my favorites because it talks a little bit about all the different ways that kids are kids. And I want to see if you, some of you have heard me read this story before, but I want to read it again because it's really fantastic. It's Whoever You Are by Mem Fox. Little one, whoever you are, wherever you are, there are little ones just like you all over the world. Their skin may be different from yours, and their homes may be different from yours. Their schools may be different than yours. Mm-hmm. And their lands may be different from yours. Their lives may be different from yours, and their worlds may be very different from yours. But inside, their hearts are just like yours, whoever they are, wherever they are, all over the world. Their smiles are like yours. I know. And they laugh just like you, especially with the monkey on your head. Their hurts are like yours, and they cry like you too. Whoever they are, wherever they are, all over the world. Little one, when you are older and when you are grown, you may be different. And they may be different. Wherever you are, wherever they are in this big wide world. But remember this. Joys are the same, and love is the same. Pain is the same, and blood is the same. Smiles are the same, and hearts are just the same. Wherever they are, wherever you are, wherever we are, all over the world. It's fantastic for us to remember that we are all different, but we are also all the same, no matter where we are. And that's the wonderful thing about this book. It reminds us that we're all the same, whoever we are.
We bring our prayers as we bring ourselves to this circle, and so I invite us to share these words with one another. Honoring the spirit of diversity, we gather in celebration. May our understandings of one another be deepened, leading us to build a more respectful mutuality. May our understandings of one another be widened to support the struggling neighbor and welcome the lonely newcomer. May our awareness of diversity be heightened into an acceptance that makes holy our relationships with one another. As we take our place at the table, we seek to celebrate the gifts of diversity with a radical hospitality and equality. May it be so.
3, 4. Baba la Goomba la la.
A reading from the Christian scriptures in the book of Acts, which is the second volume written by the same author who wrote the Gospel of Luke. So this is part 2 of the Gospel of Luke, a collection of stories about the early Jewish Christian community. This is a story that comes to us in the 11th chapter. The Jesus community who were in Judea heard that the Gentiles had also been welcomed into the community of Jesus. So when Peter went up to Jerusalem, the Jewish believers criticized him, saying, "Why did you go to them and eat with them? Why did you baptize them without requiring them to follow the law of Judaism?" And Peter began to explain it to them step by step, and he said, "I was in the city of Joppa praying, and I saw a vision. There was something like a large sheet coming down from heaven, being lowered by its 4 corners, and it came close to me. And as I looked closely, I saw 4-footed animals, beasts of prey, reptiles, and birds of the air. And I also heard a voice saying, "Get up, Peter, and eat." But I said, "No, by no means, for nothing profane or unclean has ever entered my mouth." And a second time I heard the same voice. "What the Creator has made clean, you must not call profane." This happened 3 times. Then everything was pulled up again into the sheet. At that very moment, 3 men sent from Caesarea arrived at the house where we were. The Spirit told me to go with them and not to make a distinction between them and us. 6 companions accompanied me, and we entered into the house of the man who sent for us. His name was Cornelius. And he told us how he had seen a vision in which he had heard the words, "Send to Joppa and bring Simon, who's called Peter, and he will give you a message by which you will be saved." As I began to speak, the Spirit was with us there, just as it had been with us at the beginning. This is a story passed down to us from the writings of the first century Jewish Christian community. Apparently, we all do it. We all dream dramatically, vividly, creatively, despite our often total amnesia about these nocturnal experiences. We're told our nightly dreams are the inner work of our unconscious being. But we also speak of dreams as the very conscious act of our imaginations. As we celebrate Black History Month, we're inspired again by the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. Those words spoken in 1963 at the March on Washington. Let's say them together. "Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I have a dream that on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." More than 50 years later, we are still inspired by the vision of becoming a beloved community, the beloved community of our deepest dreams. And dreams are also those instruments of change that stir from below conscious thought, a way of attracting our attention to something that needs our intention. That's the experience that a first century storyteller gives to the character of Peter. The conditions were just right for dreaming. Peter was hungry, and he took himself to the terrace on the roof of the house where he was staying to await an invitation to come to the dinner table. He must have been middle-aged because his happy hour featured a nap, not a nip. It was the perfect cocktail for drowsiness. Low blood sugar, a pleasant breeze coming off the sea, the warm Middle Eastern sun, and the scent of fresh bread wafting up from the oven in the street below. So it's really no great surprise that he dreams of food. We hardly need to be either Freudians or Jungians to interpret Peter's dream. The storyteller has suggested to us from the beginning that this experience had a kind of mystical quality, like a vision. But for Peter, it could hardly have felt like a spiritual experience. Because here's Peter, a good Jewish boy raised in a good Jewish home with a good Jewish mother, staying in Joppa with a good Jewish family, dreaming of eating every unkosher thing he can think of. And Peter's still Peter, even in his dreams. Just like that night at the table, when he was with Jesus and the friends of Jesus, and Jesus offered to wash their feet, and Peter leaps to his feet and he says, "No, no, never, never in a million years would I dream of letting you wash my feet." And as the storyteller goes on, later that night, "No, no, never in a million years would I pretend I don't know you. No, no, never in a million years would I consider eating any of this stuff, no matter how hungry I am." And just like the rest of us, Peter resists not once, not twice, but 3 times, because Peter has this really peculiar relationship with the number 3. 3 protests, 3 denials, 3 times he's asked who he loves, 3 times he's invited to eat what's forbidden. Not just forbidden fruit, but every forbidden creature you can think of, badgers and buzzards and bats, to name just a few. Just about anything that wasn't kosher was in that sheet. And of course, Freud and Jung would both be quick to tell us the dream's not really about what's on the table. It's really about who's at the table. It's not really about the menu. It's about the guest list. It's not really about what we eat. It's about those with whom we eat. Peter has spent several transformative years of his life in the company of a radical peasant teacher who was critiqued for his eating habits. Not for his table manners, not for his diet, but for his table mates. The religious leaders of the day dismissed Jesus as a drunkard and a glutton, not because of what he ate or drank or how much he ate or drank, but because he ate with the nobodies and the nuisances, with Gentiles and with women, with all manner of humanity. So after 3 years or so, you'd think, if anything, Peter might have developed some different eating habits. Maybe even some different dinner companions. But once again, he needs to be invited 3 times to order the unthinkable for the menu, to get him ready for the 3 strangers that are about to invite him to be the Sidney Poitier character in the Guess Who's Coming to the First Century Dinner Party. And he was barely awake when a knock came on the door. And this posse had been sent by a Roman official who lived up the road in Caesarea. In Caesarea. In Caesar's summer palace. In the all-weather port built by the Romans. In the place that reeked of empire. In the place that was synonymous for every first century Jew. Synonymous with oppression and occupation. Cornelius had called Peter because he too had had the strangest dream. He too had heard voices, seen a vision, And never in his wildest dreams could he have imagined inviting some of the surviving Jesus community into his home. It wasn't so very long ago that his government had just dealt with the problem of their leader. The message of the Jesus community was more than a minor nuisance to the empire that Cornelius served. And now he was to send for a man named Peter who's staying at a seaport down the road in Jaffa. When Peter put one foot outside the door of that Jaffa house, and he pointed his nose north towards Caesarea, he took a step that would change him forever, that would change the Jewish Christian movement forever. He was opening to a possibility he would never have entertained, not in his wildest dreams. He was preparing to enter the home of a Gentile, and worse than that, the home of a Roman official, the home of the one who represented the other, and more than the other, the enemy. It was this radical act that would begin to expand the Jesus movement. Fresh from the expanse of that great white sheet of his dreams, Peter was about to open the Jesus movement not only to the family of Gentiles, but to an officer in the Roman army. When Peter went into that house, it was packed with every shirt-tail relative and all Cornelius' closest friends. And they're all waiting for Peter. And what's the first thing Peter does? Open mouth, insert foot. The first words coming out of his mouth, I shouldn't really be here. I'm sure you all know it's unlawful for a Jew to associate with Gentiles. Didn't he learn anything up there on the roof? Imagine how Cornelius and his guests must have felt. This guy walks into the house, and he treats them like he might catch something awful just from being in the same room with them. And then comes the word you gotta love. I really shouldn't be here, but. But means things can change. But means the past doesn't have to prescribe the future. But means the way things are not the only way that things can be. But I was lost, and now I'm found. But I was blind, and now I see. But I've been shown my own prejudice. But I'm starting to open to a new understanding. But I'm beginning to see that there's more to see. But I'm starting to see who's been missing from the table. But I'm starting to imagine a new possibility. But I'm starting to understand why our teacher gathered us around tables we would never have imagined ourselves eating at. But I'm beginning to see that there's more than enough room in this movement for all of us. Beyond all the virtual opportunities we have for social networking, beyond Facebook and Pinterest and blogging, there are radical contemporary movements around the power of the table. For instance, consider the dining room at Marnita Schroller and Carl Goldstein's modest 3-bedroom bungalow in Minneapolis, where more than 50 people are invited for dinner. Most of them have never met before. And they've been invited not only to share dinner, but to participate in a feast of ideas. Because meaningful conversation is always the main dish that's served at Marnita's table. For almost 15 years now, Carl and Marnita have been building social justice with good food and meaningful conversations that began for many years in their homes and are now held in community centers and larger facilities to accommodate the number of people who want to participate in these conversations. The topic's always different. And the guests are generally strangers to each other, but have some connection to the theme of that particular evening's conversation. There have been dinners to wrestle with HIV/AIDS, where the guest list includes those who are infected with the virus. Organizers from support organizations, medical personnel who are treating those with the disease, and sales representatives from AIDS drugs manufacturers, among others. Whatever the topic is, the gatherings have a really well-worn pattern. You eat, you talk, and you move. You don't stay in the same chair or the same conversation all evening. Respect is mandatory. Food is shared. And at some point in the evening, each person takes to the floor to say something about how that evening's topic intersects their life. And before the dinner is finished, everyone is asked to share an insight that they gained from a conversation that they shared that night. Marnita's table has convened dinner conversations over immigration, over refugees, over war, over affordable housing, to name just a few of the conversations. In a society that's hungry for deep and meaningful conversation, Marnita's table isn't just a place for stimulating conversation, it's a model for social change that any of us can replicate. She and her partner are intentional about inviting people who are outside their sphere of social network. They select people and invite people who are on all sides of the issue. They're intentional in making sure that half of the guests, at least half of the guests, are individuals of color, and a significant number of those around the tables are those who live below the poverty line. So why do they do it? Marnita's father was an African American of Latin descent. Her mother was a Danish Jew. She was adopted as a toddler by a white couple and grew up the only black-skinned person in a small town in rural Washington state. When her family brought her home, she was 2 years of age. The town called a meeting to discuss how they didn't want to have those kind of people in their town. When she was a teenager, she moved to Portland, Oregon, to live with her older sister. And there she tried to integrate into the black community, only to find out that she was perceived as being too white to belong. So she grew up feeling she was never an us, always a them. When she was 17 years old, she left Oregon with $5 in her pocket and a deep sense of alienation and a determination that her life would be about something different. Having never felt welcome anywhere, she was going to make room at her table for everyone. There would be room for anyone who would come and behave civilly. As the years went by, a career in publicity took her to Minneapolis, where she met her partner, Carl Goldstein. as she began to reach out to others who were newcomers to the Twin Cities. She began to reach out to others in communities of color. Her table began to evolve into life-changing gatherings where differently minded people could find common ground in meaningful conversation and good food. We all know something of the transformative power of coming to the table. Whether it's the experience of some of us who shared a table with strangers at the Bissell Center, at Mustard Seed, at Operation Friendship, or those experiences we've had of being in a mini United Nations with international students, or sitting in this room around tables with friends and strangers who've joined us for a community meal, or whether it's being confronted at our front doors with those who have a conversation they want to evoke among us. There are powerful places of coming together in our differences. Every time we are willing to take our place around a table with those who are not all just like us. Every time we are willing to engage a conversation with those who have views that are not just like ours. Like Marnita and Carl, or like Peter and Cornelius, who were inspired by the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, we can dream and eat and talk our way into a new humanity. Into a table where we practice how to be a beloved community, how to be what Jesus of Nazareth called the kingdom of God. The table where we sit together, eat together, meet one another, is where we learn to be human. Whether that happens at a literal table or it happens in a conversation, whatever it is that brings us together with one another in a human moment, in the midst of our differences, to find our common humanity, where we learn to live together, where we learn to value diversity, where we're changed by those we eat with, those we speak with, where we're opened and altered by sharing one another's dreams and struggles, our hopes and aspirations. And tables are powerful places, essential for spiritual formation. It's no accident that we gather week by week in this room circling a table. I can't think of a more powerful symbol to place in our midst. As we gather around this symbol, we're confronted with the very essence of being spiritual beings in a human experience. As we gather week by week, circling this table, we're invited to ask ourselves, what do we bring to the table? Who's missing from our table? Who is it we need to speak with, talk with, listen to? How are we changed by those with whom we dream, we eat, we speak? Don and I recently enjoyed a street performance by a multi-ethnic group of young people on Venice Beach in California. And they concluded their street performance with these words: "There's only one race. It's the human race." And so we go, knowing there is light within each of us, light in those with whom we find great similarity and in those we share great differences. And so we go to honor the light in one another, to find light with one another. We go into the sacredness that is within and between and among us and beyond us.